Sionil novel, My Brother, My Executioner, is about two half-brothers caught up in the agrarian unrest of the 1950s during the Hukbalahap rebellion. One brother stays on in the village as a peasant. The other brother is adopted by the Spanish landlord and sent to Manila to study. The latter becomes a writer, an editor, a poet, and later on becomes the heir to the wealth and social position of the landlord. The two brothers therefore find themselves on the opposite sides of the fence. When one brother becomes the leader of the Hukbalahap movement, and the other brother, the writer, who assumes the role of the feudal landlord. One brother holds a bolo, the other holds a pen. Chapter 36 of the novel is in the form of a letter, and the writer writes to his brother after their final confrontation. This letter almost reads like one that Sionil wrote to himself. For part of himself was left in his peasant rural background in Rosales, Pangasinan, and the other half became the sophisticated intellectual writer who became citified and cosmopolitan. Whatever the tensions might be revealed in the two sides of the persona of the writer, this letter contains the burning ideals Frankie remained faithful to for the rest of his writing life. In a sense, he never left his village. Chapter 36 of My Brother, My Executioner. My brother. When I saw you tonight, when in a moment of truth you came to me with a profession of love, my deepest regret was that I had none to give you. You said that you had none either, but you did give me something. You affirmed what I had always known to be the greatest manifestation of love or hate, and that is the willingness to lose the physical self. More than this loss, however, is the total commitment of the mind to an end that gives no glory, no reward, no immortality. My brother, you will be reborn, even before you meet him who is our last arbiter. I know this, for you, not I, are the new whom we have all been seeking. I have often wondered about the shape and color of this new man, this archangel, this man whom we have sought to be the ultimate modernizer. Now I know what he looks like. He may think of himself as a machine or as a weapon, but I know that he is much, much more than this. He is a spigot of true blood, and a coil of complex nerves, and although he may regard his life with some contempt, the truth is that he gives values far more than I can adorn mine with a hypnosis of words. He is the poet, not I. Words. These are the jewels that I must polish. I must now try to answer as truthfully as I can, at least to myself, without having to justify myself, the question of what I have done with words, of what use is poetry, of what use is art. In fact, I would like to think that poetry or art is the most luminous, the most lucid of all forms of communication, for it goes straight not to the mind, but to the heart. I would be at a loss, however, to describe how the process comes about, and because the process sometimes defines the nature and uses of art, you must forgive me if I find no real explanation for the uses of art. What I can tell you is what art is against. Art is opposed to the debasement of the human spirit. It is against anything that brutalizes, primarily because it is an affirmation of life. And anything that brutalizes denies life. How simple it would be for me to say now that art is life, not death, and that art, with all its inanities, its obscurity, and its lack of purpose, is perhaps, like you, the ultimate conqueror of death. This, I think, is what I have tried to do. To create, for myself at least, something that could make me more than what I am. Coward and weakling, a man who has forsaken his past and his loved ones, a man who has lived on hate, as I know my kind of hate and yet must learn how to live, if only to reassure himself that he is an artist. I think that I am, as usual, flattering myself again, thinking of myself as a creator equipped with the finest sensibilities and therefore special. How I would like to call myself a new man. But I know that I am not, and that by your light I will never be really committed to life in such a way that I can vanquish death in the manner in which you have flung yourself completely towards its defeat. It is you, then, my fearsome executioner, who is the artist, the rebel, and creator. For it is you who will make beauty out of the ugliness that pervades our lives, out of the dung heap that surrounds us. As for me, there is no single shred of doubt in my mind as to the future that I face, a future that I will have no hand in shaping in the way that you have. My mundane task is to survive. And to survive, I must stay away from the turmoil of conflict and the putrefaction of despair. My sight is limited. I look around me and see the vastness of a landscape that has been charred into ruins. I see nothing but the rubble of dreams, and I am puny and weak, and I cannot do anything but quiet this helpless rage and remember that I no longer belong. In spite of this, I will try to live with my concept of honor, to accept the limits of what I can endure. If I am driven forward, inch by inch toward the grave, it is by compulsion, and it is only with death that the tyrant within can be vanquished. God, I am afraid. I would like to think that I can be brave, as in the harsh physical sense I was once brave. I have seen death and laughed at its ugly face, but I have not really conquered him. For in the end, death will triumph, and he knows it. But my death has happened, and it has been swift and even sweet, for it has been administered with grace, with love, not